Welcome, everyone, to Cinedome's first episode of their new podcast, Cinephiliacs, where movie making becomes practical magic. I'm your co-host, Daniel Scott DeGeste, and on my left here we have AK, founder of Kiro Pictures. How you doing, AK?
I'm doing great. Great to be here.
That's good. Well, you know who I hope is also great to be here is an esteemed guest of ours. This person is a knowledgeable reviewer of Boss equipment. He's an interviewer of Gollum himself, Andy Serkis, and he was once a coworker of directors Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is Tim the Buttner.
How's it going?
Welcome, Tim.
Thank you.
How you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a nice chilly day here in Florida, so feeling right at home because I'm native from Vermont.
Yeah, that's actually how Tim and I kind of first found common ground, was because we are from the same state, if you didn't know that, AK.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. You guys are from Vermont?
We both are from Vermont.
Yes.
And grew up, not too far away from each other.
I
Funny
get
enough,
it.
just-
Yep, the skin tone. You guys, I can see it.
Just years apart in the
Yes.
in the lovely Vermont sun.
Lack
So,
of.
yeah, so Tim, let's get started. Let's just tell us how you got started in filmmaking.
Well, my journey started way back when I was in elementary school. I just always loved movies, and pretty much I just knew I always wanted to do something with them. I initially wanted to act, but then kind of coming up with the ideas of what I would want to act in got me thinking about movie ideas and wanting to tell the stories and just make the actual movies. And then I got very much delved into the technical and very deep end aspect of it and really got myself in there. And through college, started into the Stereo 3D world and went out of college and went into the Stereo 3D world then.
What? Pause. What kind of acting roles did you do?
Well, as a kid, not much. I was an extra in this movie called Icebreaker, which actually had Sean Astin right before he went to do Lord of the Rings. He did
That's
a movie
super cool.
in Killington, Vermont with Bruce Campbell and Stacy Keach, directed by David Gene Cola. So it's kind of one of those funny movies where you watch it and it's just like, okay, then Sean Astin went and did Lord of the Rings right after this. Interesting.
So it's
That's
like
very cool. It seems like, yeah.
one of the things that Vermont can now claim.
Did you start it as an actor?
No. I did take acting classes because I wanted to better understand the actor, and then I fell in love with acting. And try to.
I also started as an actor.
Try to do
That's
it whenever
weird.
I can.
It's like acting is what snags you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, probably because that's all we see first. Like
Yeah.
when you're watching a movie, maybe.
And also we did the school plays because when I was in elementary school, they primarily gave me really good roles because I could act on the stage.
What roles did you play in theater?
So I know I did one of the dodo birds in
Classic.
the
It's timeless.
Planet for All Our Species or something, whatever it was called. Basically, but I'm gonna throw this line out there because this is one. But my best thing was to the cutest girl in our class. I got to say, "Uh-oh, lost her. Looks like we're in the same boat toots."
That's
What was her name?
Her name was Kim LaBella. So like her
Kim LaBella. if
Shout
you're
out
watching.
to Kim
Her
LaBella.
father was our gym teacher, who also ended up going on to coach the girls' high school soccer team to state championship, which Kim LaBella was part of that soccer
Kim
team
LaBella, look at
in
me
our
now.
senior year of high school.
Dang, this is just going to become... What high school did you go to, by the way?
Woodstock Union High School.
So this is just going to become a Woodstock Union High School podcast instead. We're just going to talk
Sure.
about Coach LaBella and his daughter going to state championships.
Well, let's just put it this way. The girls' soccer team, we
were
did
hot.
a scrimmage, and they beat the boys' soccer team quite easily. There's a degree in elementary school where it was co-ed, and the coach was being yelled at by the parents, put the girls in. And the girls got put in, and all the girls started kicking the ass of every other play, and it's just like, that shut them up real fast, all those parents who thought the girls were being held out because they weren't as good. No, they were better than the boys.
Nice. That's right. Vermont.
Yeah.
Stepping it up.
I can see it.
So, Tim, how do you define a successful filmmaker for yourself?
Honestly, I think what it is just having a sense of pride in your work and constantly improving your work, seeing what flaws were there before with your last project, working to make those flaws non-existent and make the next project always better than your last.
I agree with that.
Now, do you feel like, though, you need to have achievements that you feel like you need to reach? Like for some, right? They're like, I'm not a successful filmmaker unless I win an Oscar or an award or whatever, a prestigious award, let's say, right?
I can understand that, but you're going to put yourself into a more depressed type of state of living due to the fact that getting nominated is what you should hope for ever, because getting a nomination is important, but then you're in the rat race of trying to win, and if you don't win, then you're putting your whole everything on just the act of winning, which is not the right thing, because it's really difficult to win those esteemed awards.
So where's the line between, like I'm making a C movie, with myself and one actor, and then the next movie I'm also making another C movie, but maybe this time we can afford some fake, fake blood. I mean, does being a successful filmmaker have anything to do with, financial growth?
I think,
or having things, certain elements of production to make it, to bring that quality?
I think so. If you look at some of the filmmakers that have really come out as like huge success stories, look at Peter Jackson. He spent, 4 years making Bad Taste on a super low budget of, 16 millimeter film, and that was so, you watch it, it's not necessarily at all that good of a movie, but it's inventive, it's creative, you see the foundations, but then you see the later films that he's just kept taking things to that next level, where you basically have a gratuitous amount of blood in his third movie, Dead Alive, which, I think at one point held the record for the most blood in a horror film or something like that. And look at Christopher Nolan. He did the following movie, which was black and white. He shot it over weekends with friends over the course of, I want to say it was maybe a year or two, but he did it, when he could with friends and got it made. And then
so there is a certain amount of financial growth a part of success. But what happens if, as a filmmaker, let's say, you have some growth, like myself. Mind Heist, first feature I did, made for like $20,000. Second one, $250,000. Now we're doing another one that's going to be another, ultra like Mind Heist one here in a few months. Like, what do you say to those filmmakers that you kind of see they have to, they scale back just because?
Well, that's where you're going back to basics, honestly. Like when the pandemic hit, look at Sam Levinson, who had to take a pause from, doing Euphoria, this huge HBO show, and he did a small little indie movie in black and white film with just Zendaya and Denzel Washington's son, John.
Oh yeah,
David
the black
Washington.
and white one on Netflix.
Yeah, Molly and not Molly and me. Wait, Molly and Mary, something. I'm sorry, I got the name wrong, but if you look at the movie, it's a fascinating movie because it's essentially all in one location, a house. They did it ultra low budget. I mean, other than maybe the scale pay that the actors were getting, like everyone probably worked for scale, and they did that because you needed to do something creative during the pandemic, and they got something made. But that's a huge scale back when you think about it from what they were doing with Euphoria.
Yeah. So it's not always, my personal opinion on it, it's not, I think it's having the potential and opportunities for financial growth, but it's not always about that, because sometimes, like this next feature, Intersection of Madness, that we're going to be doing, we have more gear, more experience that you're bringing to the table that I didn't have during Mind Heist, so, and I don't think filmmaking is about filmmaking. It's not about, I think most importantly, it's about the execution, of the story.
I think above all else, as long as for the best financial accomplishment to feel when you're making a movie is knowing that you have the budget to actually pay everyone a good rate so that everyone's feeling like they're earning a living comfortably doing the work that they love to do. I think that above else is like a threshold that everyone should always achieve, because essentially it is a film business, and what is business other than paying people for their time?
Yeah, one of the three things I heard is, there's three types of jobs in the industry. There's the ones that pay the bills. There's the passion projects that you're not usually getting paid anything on. And then the dream is doing the projects you love and you're getting paid for it.
Exactly.
Which is very rare.
That's very similar to one of the people I've worked with before. One of their like how they choose jobs, which was very similar to that, except it was if you're working with an asshole, pay me a lot so that I can put up with them. If it's a good set, I'll take less money, right? Or you're not. It's not a horrible set. And then obviously your goal is to be in a great set where you are making a great wage. Very similar to what you said, but it was hearing this on a set.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody gets into the filmmaking. You're not doing you hear so many stories of starving artists.
Yeah.
And it is an art medium, and we are artists, and it is a business, but at the forefront, if you don't create, if the story, from going to the different panels, the different film markets and festivals, they always talk about, put the story first, because the business is propelled by the story. So if you have it backwards, where you're coming up with a story just to make money, I think chances are you're not. I think you'll fizz. I really do. I don't think you'll last very long. You have to find the stories that are speaking to your truth, and that you're passionate about. So,
and I think that's kind of the problem with the studio system currently at the moment, is they're so centered around the known properties that they're not being inventive in their storytelling. They're going with such formulaic approaches that the general audiences have been leaving the theaters for these massive movies. I mean, with the exception of Avatar, which is working on very much an old school theater type of. Both Top Gun and Avatar functioned on a box office level like old blockbusters used to, where it was legs. Like, people would return to the theater, they'd see it again. It wouldn't just be all in that opening weekend of getting people in and make as much as you can so that way you make back your money. And that's essentially what a lot of these studios have been doing for the longest time.
Yeah, I mean. Speaking of Avatar, it's a story that works. It's it's. I took my 7-year-old daughter to it. So it's the demographic, the audience range. It's wide, so the net's really wide. So you're capturing, a lot of people. So you have to make, in order to do a story like that, it has to be intelligent enough to not absolutely bore adults. But it has to be, also dumbed down enough that children can, enjoy it as well. I don't think, James Cameron, he knows exactly what he's doing.
Oh, he does. No, he actually has the foundations of the storytelling to such a precise measure that he actually does write well. And he tells a good story, even if it's a story where, like, kind of rolling eyes about it, going, it's still Pocahontas in space, it's Dances with Wolves in space, it's Fern Gully in space. It's like, we can criticize that. And yes, it's the most simplistic story, but it's accessible to, on a worldwide market. Look at how it's doing worldwide. It's accessible via multiple languages.
And that's a good point.
Understand it, and they access it so much easier.
I think that's a good point. A lot of times as, American filmmakers, we don't realize how good we have it. And when those types of films that have such amazing technological advances come out, I mean, it really is, it's a wow factor to those third world, countries. People don't have a whole lot. They see something like, oh my God, look how real looking this looks, so that's a good point.
Yeah. And the leaps and bounds that he's made in the visual effects and just overall the performance capture medium has gone to new levels that it justifies doing a simpler story because you want it more accessible because you have to justify selling the technology at that point. And what he did stereo 3D wise, I remember working with stereo rigs a decade ago, and you had the polarization causing slight differences between the two eyes. In all of that they did, they worked really hard to fix some of the polarization issues in acquisition, so that way they had more, proper capture symmetry-wise between the two eyes, and they've really excelled what they've done in visual effects and color grading with regards to stereo 3D. So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. And what's cool about it is all of the technology, like from the first one that he did, it was the same thing with Favreau when he was working. Was it Magically? What was the LED volume? They were the first people to pioneer it.
So you're talking for the Mandalorian?
Yeah, Mandalorian. What was the company?
Stagecraft.
Stagecraft. But it was Favreau working with them, right?
Favreau was working with them, and that was all through Industrial Light and Magic.
There we go.
And he was doing it on The Lion King, even looking at certain tests. Actually, the funny thing is, I saw one of the behind-the-scenes things on The Mandalorian where they have him going around. Here he is using one of the Ursa minis from Blackmagic Design. I'm like, of course. But you look at how much Blackmagic Design is in all of that post-processing workflow. They have their switchers. They have so much hardware that's used for that. They've got, just so many products that are used to capture all that stuff, bring it into the computer to be able to adjust the lighting inside of Unreal Engine to actually have it correct so that what's being put onto the people with, on-set lighting can actually match.
Yeah, what the point I was going to make is, what's interesting is the technology that we're developing in the top levels of cinema, for Mandalorian or whatever, it trickles down to everything. And so now the new wave, the new toy on the block is the LED volume that everybody's, like every studio's buying, like, we got to get this or we're not competitive.
But at the same time, like, it goes to the same problem that always exists with new technology. It does trickle down, yes, and that's great. However, the misuse of it starts occurring a lot. Look at Francis Ford Coppola's recent production. Apparently they abandoned the LED wall, went back to green screen, and he's got a bunch of other troubles from what I'm reading.
Are you talking about Metropolis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he's got, like, production designers quitting and all that. But, there's certain instances where you look at the classic methods, and I still look at, like, what people did with miniatures. Like, you can still do a lot of really old-school techniques and combine them all together.
Yeah, well, historically, I think Metropolis was hard the first time around. So I remember that, like, back in film school, they were talking about how much of a financial feat it was to make. So who knows, maybe it's a publicity stunt.
Maybe. Well,
just like
there's no
last
such thing
time.
as bad publicity, as they say.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Just like last time, Metropolis. Just as difficult to make. Can Francis Ford Coppola accomplish this feat? I don't know.
Yeah,
That was my best trailer voice.
He has a history of not aversion, but he has a history of
Troubled productions.
Troubled productions. He had
it on Dracula. He had it on the most famous one, Apocalypse Now. But even Godfather.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say Godfather even had its issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with almost being shut down and everything.
All right, let's move on to this next one.
Well, hey, look, I was trying, all right? But you guys were having some great conversation. So, Tim, obviously you've showcased your knowledge on VFX in terms of your experience there and post-production. So I wanted to ask you, obviously recently you were the colorist on a local film called Wild Man.
Yes.
And just so for viewers and just so we're defining, what exactly does a colorist do?
So a colorist, for The Wild Man, perfect example, because it's a found footage type of film where we had multiple different cameras being used. We had the main camera being the C300 Mark II, and then we had a Mark III version of the C300 from Canon as well, but then there were some Sony cameras, GoPros, some drone footage. So what you have to do as a colorist is not only do you have to match all of those so that they all feel uniform across the whole movie, but then you also need to create a look so that you actually have a style that is scene by scene or like sequence by sequence, so that way people feel through the color of the movie kind of a sense of what's going on in the story.
And how do you approach that? You know what I mean? Like, how do you approach coloring a project? Like, you talk about having to match stuff. So is that like a conversation with obviously the director, the DP, or like art director in terms of like...
There's a conversation with all departments usually, but when it comes to shot matching, that's almost always simple because the conversation's already been had about what's going on set dressing wise, costuming, so that way color choices usually made there. And then it's matter of the DP and the lighting department, lighting and lensing, but then you might have slight changes, so you might want to, we need to make this shot match this because, the color's a little bit different in the color temperature, or, we have a slight exposure difference. So you have to make some fine-tune adjustments just for shot-to-shot matching, but that's just exactly that. You're just making it more uniform for the scene, but then you do a creative look on top is the next thing where you're emphasizing some of the set dressing and some of the, costuming, where if you really want to, emphasize this character's wearing a red dress with a lover, where I'm using a classic film here, Dial M for Murder, he has with her husband, her in a white dress at the beginning of the movie. Then she's with her lover and she's wearing a red dress. If you really wanted to emphasize that red dress, you could make it pop more in a color grade, where then mute the white a lot more too in your color grade. So you can actually make those creative decisions, and you do that with your director and your DP through the process.
So one bar, all right, sick.
Still one bar, everybody. We're
going on the...
We're still doing great.
Final bit of gas. We're going to go. We're going to Kramer and the Colorist.
I messed up today, guys. Brought 3 cameras and 1 lens.
So what he's saying is he's human, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's what this
podcast
is about.
I was doing a checklist in my head. I was like, all right, got cameras, got sound. We're good.
I hear you didn't list lenses there, though. That was the thing. You said sound, cameras. Oh, yeah, lenses.
But these are all the common things that you deal with within production. And then, there's solves in post. And again, with color, the one thing that's brilliant about color software now, like Davinci Resolve, and even the other one, which is Film Light Base Light, which is a very common one in major post houses. So you're going to have color management where you can actually... All of these softwares know the color profiles from these camera manufacturers. They work with them. They get that. So you can actually transform all of those color profiles into a common color space for everything to work in and make life easier.
Yeah, I was with Tim the other day, and so Tim's actually the one that converted me to Davinci Resolve. I was a hardcore Adobe user, 8 years. And switch over was about 6 months ago now.
That seems about right.
Yeah, 6 months, and it's undeniable. Like from the render times to to give an example, 115 grains, would render out from Premiere in about 2.5 hours on the latest Mac Studio Fastboy camera or computer. And then with Davinci Resolve, it was maybe 50 minutes. So you got your render times.
And you're dealing with 8K
and
red raw footage on that one.
Correct. So the film was shot on red and, on a Red Ranger 8K. And, very, very intensive. Most computers couldn't, interestingly enough, my previous trash can Mac Pro couldn't do it. It crashed so then I had to upgrade the computer. But not only that, so you have, what's great about it, Davinci, most people that are probably watching this already know about it, but if you don't, you have everything in one platform. And, from, the media management, you just go over one dial kind of down the assembly line of post-production. It has... I don't know if it's as competitive in the audio realm. I'd have to get with my guy on Pro Tools. I don't know if it's...
As far as that goes, it's not there yet, but it's a very powerful DAW kind of editor. And I know the word is DAW, it's DAW. I don't really remember what that stands for because I'm not an audio guy.
Yeah.
But Fairlight is powerful, and it's really designed for motion picture, where Pro Tools is still more for music industry in many ways. But Avid, who is the ones who make Pro Tools. They are, of course, industry standards still for all non-linear editing in the Hollywood industry.
Yeah. Well, it's mind-blowing how much stuff they packed into this one application. You know, editing, color correction, After Effects type stuff with Fusion, you know, audio. And it's done in it feels very, I want to say Apple, because it's very user-friendly with all the icons. And
You want a little history here?
Yeah.
So back in the day, Final Cut Pro 7 was the last, great version that everyone considers for Final Cut before they went to Final Cut X.
Yeah.
And Paul Saccone, who actually worked for Apple on Final Cut up through Final Cut 7, went to work for Blackmagic Design afterwards, when it was just purely still industry-level color grading. It used to be like $150,000 to get Davinci Resolve because you would have to buy the panel, and like the way you got the software was buying the big giant panels, and you were basically buying a whole system. Well, then it dropped down in pricing and all that, and Blackmagic brought down the pricing a huge amount. You can still buy like the $30,000 advanced panel, but they have now a $3,000 panel and then a really smaller micro panel that's $1,000 basically. They make all that for Colorist, but then all the editing tools were added in over the course of the last decade, and you look at it, Paul Saccone's footprints or handprints are all over it because he comes from Apple's Final Cut, goes over to Blackmagic, and they get all these nice, sweet editing features in there, and it really becomes what, honestly, I think Final Cut should have been after the, going from Final Cut 7 to Final Cut X.
Yeah, well, it's so great. So, for someone that, like myself, that primarily works as a producer-director, it's really nice to just, you're always thinking about how can I be more efficient? How can I make this more convenient for myself? And everything from the title generators on there, way better than Adobe Premiere. You don't have to buy these plugins. Now, obviously, the color and what you can do with that is just like it kicks Lumetri's butt. Well, it's not even. There's no contest.
There's no contest there. But then, look at what Adobe had before Lumetri, which was SpeedGrade, and they had. I remember in 2014, because of someone messing up the whole process when I came to edit and color grade a project, where like I couldn't get anything to go from Premiere to Davinci at all because like things wouldn't relink properly to the original RAW, but then it wouldn't even go to SpeedGrade either. And anytime I ever tried going to SpeedGrade way back when I attempted anything, it was awful. It was a far easier process just doing XML over to Davinci, and Davinci was always more powerful than SpeedGrade anyways. And Adobe abandoned that and went to Lumetri, but they've made small improvements to Lumetri, but it's still nowhere near what Davinci is for color.
So what I'm hearing is, folks, Blackmagic stole from Apple. Hot take right here, right now. Tim, breaking news. We wouldn't have Davinci without Final Cut.
They stole employees who were disgruntled. But actually, Paul Saccone now isn't even with Blackmagic Design anymore. He's actually over at Frame.io.
We just need to follow Paul Saccone. Wherever he goes.
Frame.io,
he's
guys,
the future.
Buy stock right now. You want some financial tips? Buy stock with Frame.io.
But that's Adobe now because Adobe acquired them back in 2020.
So I take that back.
So we're back at Adobe. I'm going. Sorry, Tim. I'm leaving Davinci.
Well, again, like this was something that was disappointing to me when Adobe acquired Frame.io because it's but we all just started getting away from Adobe. But
yeah, it is crazy though with everything you get with Davinci that it's only right now $300 for like not even the free version.
God,
you get a free version. There's a free version out there, people. Yeah. Like if you're like I'm unsure about Davinci, there's a free version out there that you can try, and then if you like it so much, you only have to pay $300 for the studio suite. Compared to paying
once because you get it
correct exactly one price versus what you'd pay for Adobe.
It's insane. No, I spent like $5,000 over the last 8 years for somewhere around that for Adobe, and when Tim he's like, oh, it's just $300. I was like, what? And he's like no, like $300, and you can keep updating for the life of the. I was like, that's no.
Yeah, it sounds.
And then the fact, I knew it was free. Now, back in the day, before 6 months ago, I had used Davinci years like 7-8 years ago.
And that was when it was $1,000.
Well, the free version, they still had the free version, but you could only do, I think, like 1080.
Yeah.
And I was using 4K at that time, and I was like, oh man, I can't. Yeah.
Limitations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But back then, you had to buy a dongle. It was actually a USB dongle that you had to plug in and have it keep plugged in into the computer to be able to use the studio version. So that was $1,000. It then dropped to like $500. Then they dropped it to $300, and of course started giving out activation codes for you to be able to use, which was great because then you got rid of the dongle. But
Cut. Not the cameras, everyone. This is a segment we called Cut, and it's where we ask our guest, hey, Tim, what is something that should be cut out from the filmmaking industry? Something that you think doesn't really need to be around anymore.
that's an interesting question. Can I say agents and lawyers?
Oh, no, dude. You can't do that.
Ooh,
My
hot
girlfriend
take.
used to be an agent. No, it's
I mean, no, like they do their jobs that you need them to do, but like dealing with them can be a pain in the butt.
Yeah, well, I think what filmmakers need to realize is that, you know, if you want to get paid a lot of money, you have to create kind of pop culture type of art that's appealing to a lot of people, and because so much of art is what's trending or what's hot in the moment, you know, it's constantly fluctuating between, you know, the guy with the mohawk and then, you know, whatever, this next looking type of person that fits this next, that's in line with this next like political agenda. And, you know, so agents, sales agents, talent agents, you know, they're just, you know, they're trying to, they're representing the business side where they're, you know, not that I'm an agent or anything, but my girlfriend used to be a talent agent, and, you know, they're representing the talent that are trending, and that's how they're making their money. So, you know, if an agent represents someone that has a good heart and is really passionate, even though they may be a great person, if they don't fit within that, you know, political kind of box where you're at, you know, it's hard for them to make money, and then they're not going to focus on you. So it's not personal. It's just
So if there's any agents or lawyers watching, just have better. Just Tim wants better communication. Just let him know what's going on. All right.
Yeah,
that's all.
Just treat me better.
just Tim.
Yeah.
You can still look. So guys, this is a new segment we call Take One. What? So if you guys didn't know, the Motion Picture Association, or the MPA, has a subdivision which actually rates movies, which is called the Classification and Ratings Administration, or CARA, or CARA. I don't know how you pronounce it. But Cinedome has their own rating system. It's called the Cinedome Over-Under Rating Association, or CORA. I don't know if AK knew this because obviously that's a fictional association, guys. Not
guys,
a real association.
This is a game. This is a game, guys. This is all new. Yeah.
But CORA, for short, this is where we list out movies, and we have AK here and Tim say over or under in terms of overrated or underrated.
Oh, this is good. This will be fun.
Okay.
All right?
I'm enjoyed.
So I'm just going off the top.
Over, under? We just say over, under?
Over, under. Yeah, you can't say neutral.
Okay.
So
Got it.
even if you think it's a neutral, you think it's right where it's at, you got to pick one.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we can't just say good. It's a good film.
Over, under. I would say if it's a good film, you probably should maybe say under, right? Because you don't want it to be overrated.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
You could try to maybe slip a good in there. We'll see. All right.
All right. Here we go, guys.
But these are just the top movies. Just pulling them up. All right. Here we go. So take one. The Shawshank Redemption.
Under.
Under.
Oh, okay. Reason why? Quickly.
It's a great film.
It's a great film.
It's a great film. All right, moving on.
If anything, I think it should have won Best Picture that year. I mean, it's a tough year because you have Pulp Fiction as well, but
All right, there we go.
compared to Forrest Gump, I'm sorry, Shawshank's so much better.
All right, there you go. Should have won Best Picture. It's underrated. The Godfather. Over, under.
Under.
Under for sure.
Why?
You can't pick great movies.
Look, this is just I just pulled up IMDb top 250 movies.
Oh man.
That's why you got to go over under.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna agree because I'm very pop culture.
All right.
So here we go. Under.
The Dark Knight.
Under.
Over.
Ooh.
Whoa.
I really
Hot take.
I am sorry to say, like, listen, I love the movie, but
Hater.
I was initially in theaters going, I almost prefer
I'm going back to Adobe, guys.
Batman Begins over The Dark Knight. Now, Dark Knight was still a great movie, but I think it was overhyped for what it was, and it's a really good movie, but I thought Batman Begins was a slightly better movie.
Ooh, let us know what you guys think. Batman Begins better? Do you agree with Tim?
That's insulting to Heath Ledger.
Actually, no, I'm not.
He died for that role.
Nope, Tim, that's it. You don't get anything else. You don't get. You go. No. That's it. That's it. You said Batman Begins better than Dark Knight. Moving on. The Godfather Part 2.
Definitely under.
I don't know. I'd say
Both of them?
Over.
You think The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2 are underrated?
The first one was my favorite.
First one, yeah. I think, yeah. That's how I feel
will
like.
definitely always say that Godfather Part 2 was better than Part 1 because I think it's a beautiful juxtaposition of Michael declining in his family, while Vito is, kind of moving upwards. So you see the rise of Vito.
We know what the story. We can look the log line up.
This is it's like a mix, like water with a little mix thing in there. It's,
for your throat.
We're not sponsored by this, but this is MIO or Mio. I have no idea how to sponsor or how it's pronounced.
Sweet.
I can show you the packaging at the end of this if you'd like. All right, guys, let's finish up here. We'll try to knock these out really quick. I want speed round here.
Here we go.
All right, the 12 Angry Men.
Over.
If you haven't seen it,
I'm gonna say over.
Over. All right. Schindler's List.
Under. Really, dude?
It's a tough movie to rewatch because it's so difficult.
Fucking good.
It's so good, but it's just like
under Tim.
No, I'm saying under.
Oh,
okay,
under,
okay.
but it's really heart wrenching to rewatch it. So it's a tough one to.
Boom. It's hard to watch, everybody. Yeah. It's underrated, but it's hard to watch.
Puts you under.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King.
Over.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with over just because they should have had the scoring of the Shire. If they had that, that would have been happy.
Freaking score of the Shire makes that an overrated film. Pulp Fiction.
Under.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with under.
We don't need to know why. I think it's over, but Dan's hot take slipping in there really quick. I actually have a friend. I'm only really saying that because I have a friend that loves Pulp Fiction. Like, it's his favorite film. So he can come at me with words later. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Under.
Over.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. And last one, Forrest Gump.
Over.
That's hard. Probably over just because it's so over talked about. But it's I enjoy the film. It's a good watch.
It's a good watch.
Like, it's
enjoyable watch.
It's not under, like, understated. Like, everyone knows Forrest Gump. I mean, they made a restaurant about it.
Bubba Gump.
What do you think is a better film to rewatch? Or not even rewatch. Hang on. You got two choices. Forrest Gump or Schindler's List. Which one's if you had to recommend which one to watch right now.
It's easier rewatch to do Forrest Gump.
Throw out rewatch. Which one would be easier to watch right now?
Because you're going to be uplifted
or recommend.
from Forrest Gump.
Forrest
You're
Gump.
going to be so down after Schindler's List.
Schindler's List is depressing.
It's so depressing.
It's so sad. Yeah, no one wants to bring that to a fucking Christmas party.
Hey guys,
are you gonna
I hope you're having a great year. We're movie night, Christmas movie night. Guess what we're watching? Schindler's List.
Are you gonna rewatch a movie that makes you want to curl up in a ball and just cry?
So Tim, I do that with every movie.
I got a question for you. Movie that you've seen within the last 90 days you really highly recommend?
Within the last 90 days. Well, if you haven't seen Banshees of Inisherin, I really, really enjoyed that one.
The Irishman?
The Inisherin, the Banshees of Inisherin.
The Irishman is a different movie, sir.
It's an Irish film, yeah.
He said the Banshees of... This dude here is Inisherin.
I thought Inisherin, and he goes,
the Irishman?
There's a film out like that. It's on HBO.
Irish Brogue
it's called Banshees of Irishmen.
No, that's the movie he's talking about, and it's not Banshees of. It's not the Banshees of Irishmen. It's the Banshees of whatever he said.
You know what?
Banshees of Inisherin.
Hey,
I may have dyslexia, guys.
The Irishman is actually a film on Netflix. If you didn't know,
I know.
The Irishman is directed by Martin Scorsese. You know how Pa used to
Yeah,
say,
Colin
"Drink
Farrell's
this
in
glass
that
of
movie,
wine"?
everybody.
Colin Farrell
One
always
sentence
tells
as to why people should watch it. One sentence.
sentence.
Yep, one sentence. That's all you get.
Tough one.
It's about
It's a
Irishmen.
good parable to how war is in a society where two friends all of a sudden become enemies.
You know, it's funny.
Ooh, that was actually a really good
I
one
started
sentence.
watching it and I turned it off. I was like, this is so fucking boring.
Probably because you thought it was The Irishman.
I was like, I don't want to watch this.
You're like, where's Robert De Niro? He hasn't showed up for 20 minutes.
I don't know. So what's a movie you saw in the last 90 days?
Last 90 days, most recent, Puss in Boots and The Last Wish, everybody.
That's what you would recommend out of 90 days.
The last 90 days. It's literally just what's on the top of my head. I've been watching, after I saw this movie, I've been watching breakdown videos like as like a relaxation on why the villain in that movie is a really great written
in Puss in
villain.
Boots.
In Puss in Boots.
Okay.
The villain
I might have
the
to
villain
give
is
Puss in
baller.
Boots a chance.
Look,
Well,
the
now I'm definitely gonna
animation
bring my
the
daughter.
animation is great. I'll say that. It's let's say it's closest to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Avatar.
The action sequences are actually really entertaining. And they do the cool stop motion frame rate thing they've kind of done with like Lego Movie and with Spider-Man Into the
Okay.
Spider-Verse. But it's only the action scenes, which actually makes it very interesting to watch. One of the scenes had it where you had two characters talking and they weren't fighting yet, but the action was going on behind them, and so the action behind them was in the
Stop motion.
was in that stop motion aspect while they were up in the higher frame rate, which juxtaposed it and made it was just interesting. It caught my eye.
Cool.
But yeah, it's actually very entertaining. The John Mulaney plays a overweight the blueberry dude, the old rhyme about the guy with puts his thumb in a pie and tests it and everything. John Mulaney has some very funny lines. Also, there is I don't know if I want to spoil because this was a very.
Yeah, don't.
I don't want to spoil much about it.
Yeah, you don't want to spoil it.
It's
for
a,
all
But they
one
got-
line. One line. Why you go see it?
It actually relates to adults more than you'd expect.
You heard it here, guys.
Animated movies are not just for children.
That's right.
It's not.
Well, if I had to give one movie that I've seen in 90 days, it was really took me back to my film school days. It's called Bardo.
I knew you were gonna say that.
By Alejandro Arito, right? Is that how you say his name?
I think so.
Arito. I can't say it's anyone's name.
I have a
all
hard time
my
with
favorite
people,
directors.
but-
I got corrected recently by a producer here. I used to call him Villeneuve. I didn't realize it's Villeneuve.
Villeneuve, yeah. Well, it's French.
No.
The
Frickin-
French pronunciation.
First it's freaking saying the Banshees of the Irishman, and now you're saying Dennis Villeneuve way.
I'm just guys. If you're a
Denis
filmmaker
Villeneuve.
with a strange name, I'm gonna butcher it. When you're
What about my last name? I have a
Yeah, I was
have-
calling you DeGessi for the longest
that's
time.
fine.
I didn't know it was
I mean,
DeGess.
I mean, it's
but
technically not even
Bardo, guys, it is. If I had to say one line
line.
about it, it is the most modern example of cinematic art that I've seen
Whoa.
in the last 7 years.
Would you equate it to
That's-
French New Wave?
There's some similarities.
I've never seen the French do a wave. Just saying.
Yeah, there's some similarities to it, but just in terms of obviously, so Alejandro Arito, he won the Oscar for Birdman, for The Revenant, and the imagery was extremely metaphorical for some really, deep issues, and the cinematography was exceptional. He's a big fan of just using like fisheye lenses, just like in The Revenant. So a lot of the movies in like super wide angles, but it feels, because of that, you feel like you're actually there, because it just the perspective of it, it feels very real life because you see so much in the frame, and to direct for that, to have all that kind of interest placed all around out of the frame, I think is not an easy thing to do. So it's really cool. It's very metaphorical, film. So highly recommend.
So for those of you watching, we have the Banshees of the Irishman,
Inisherin.
which will probably be up for Oscar nomination. We have Bardo, which probably should be up for Oscar nomination.
I think it will be.
And then we have Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, guys.
That will definitely not be up for an Oscar nomination. I'm just kidding.
No,
Actually, maybe
it'll probably get
Well, no,
Yeah.
it came out.
It'll be for this
I think
year.
it came out this year. Yeah, it came out in
end of
January.
December. No,
Oh, it did come out in December?
Yeah, because it was nominated for the Golden Globe. So
Just
Slipping in.
Yeah,
slipping this
slipped
in
it
there
in.
right before.
listen, they sometimes do that. Like, I remember seeing Munich in January of 2006, but it had a limited release in 2005, and that was nominated. Honestly, I think that Brokeback Mountain should have also won over Crash. I will always Crash. Crash is the shittiest
Whoa,
movie ever
you heard
made.
it here multiple times over the years, guys, that Crash should not have won that Oscar.
Crash was a good film.
And that's it. That's all you're saying about that movie. All right, guys. Sadly, we are going to have to wrap up the very first episode of Cinedome's newest podcast, Cinephiliacs, where movie making becomes practical magic.
Yep. We'll see you guys here next time.
As always,
Thank you for having me on.
Well, hang on.
Thanks.
We're not there. God,
Yeah,
what? Give
yeah,
me a
sorry.
second.
Guys.
You guys are rushing me. Are you rushing or dragging? Where's that from? What quote? Movie?
Rush Hour.
Whiplash, man. Come on. All right. As always, I have been one of your co-hosts, Daniel Scott DeGesse, and with me is
AK.
founder of Cura Pictures, and please give a round of applause for our esteemed guest, once again, Tim the Butt Buttner. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, Tim.
Where can we find you, Tim?
You can find me on, Twitter at TimButt2, Instagram TimButt2Official, Facebook is TimButt2 as well, and a lot of it. So you can find me at TimButt2.
Tim Butt 2, everybody.
That's a good name. I
Yeah.
didn't realize we've been following each other for the longest time. I never said that handle out loud. That's creative, Tim.
Well, now everyone's going to be calling you the
Tim
Butt
Butt 2.
again.
Oh, yeah.
So, old high school nickname that he said I could use.
Yeah.
Tim the Butt Buttner.
Oh, yeah.
Tim Butt
It's a family
2.
nickname, actually.
I like it. That's a good.
My
that's
grandfather
creative.
was the butt. My father
Tim
was
Butt 2
the butt.
or the
Tim
Butt?
Butt
Yeah, Timbuktu. It's like Timbuktu, but Timbuktu.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.
I hope you have a wonderful life.
Sweet.
You